Right, so it was bad enough that our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, decided that after just a day of lobbying by the millionaires and billionaires to abandon plans to crack down on their precious tax avoidance schemes, their non-dom status. But now she's exposed herself completely to all new widespread attacks this morning after a cosy little chat with Sky News' Trevor Phillips, where she's attempted to not only justify that, but all the more so thanks to a horrendous piece she's penned in the Murdoch scum, because of course she's written for him as well. She's justified her very much ongoing cuts to benefits at the same time, hollowing out the safety net we all hope will be there for us should we need it at time of need. Social security no longer feeling very secure, however, and all despite much lobbying by rights groups to pull that good old Tory trick, that play from the George Osborne playbook that she incessantly seems to copy. But you have to contrast the attitude here and the choice of language too, because where she can no longer afford to crack down on the rich, it seems, lest they no longer fund her membership deficient sham of what was once a party of the working class, she's more than happy to carry on her old attitude from her own days as Shadow Department for Work and Pensions Minister, back when she said in 2016 that she'd be tougher on benefits than the Tories, because it seems in her view the Tories were not tough enough anymore. And she's backing that view up with language to match, having now referred to the system that has allowed those to manage to claim some kind of sickness benefit to work less, in her view, as now being perverse. Is long-term sickness and disability now viewed as a perversion by this Labour government now then? Because if so, she's even more stupid and offensive than her economic errors have already implied.
The point I'm really driving at here is that for some people, this concession, let's call it that, to non-doms contrasts with what you're doing to other people. And this morning, you've now written that you're going to tackle the spiralling benefits bill by taking away people's driving licenses, getting people off the stick. Now, this may be justified, but many working people will think that non-doms get sympathy and people on welfare get tough love.
This is about tackling fraud in the benefits system, and quite right too. If people aren't entitled to benefits, they shouldn't be getting them. And at the moment, we waste billions of pounds as a country every year in giving money to people who aren't entitled to it. And what we're saying is if you're ripping off the state and ripping off other taxpayers, we will take money directly out of your bank account and you risk losing your driving licence. So proper penalties for people who frankly, are getting money that they are not entitled to, and we'll crack down on that. By the end of the forecast period, we're going to be raising more than £4 billion a year by cracking down on fraud and error. For too long, this has gone unchecked. And I think most working people would say, absolutely spot on. I don't want to pay my tax to subsidise somebody who's not entitled to support.
Right, so that was Reeves this morning being asked a question of how she can justify backing off non-doms while still coming after those on benefits that some people might have identified, according to Trevor Phillips there, himself a Labour member last I heard, so picking his words offensively carefully, I thought there, considering we're comparing bashing benefits claimants to letting the rich off paying their fair share of tax. And the thing that struck me most was Reeves' anger over it. How offensive she found it to compare those two issues. How much does she actually hate those having to claim benefits whilst hating to actually come after the rich? Aside from the horrific slur she's made this weekend regarding the long-term sick and disabled, 40% of those on universal credit are in work. You take their driving licences away from them, how are they going to get to work then? How are they going to contribute to your economy then? How are you going to get your growth out of them then? It's fine if you live in a large town or city with good transport links. It's not at all great if you live in rural areas. It is pitting the working class on their low wages against the inordinately wealthy, who are seen as wealth creators, yet they aren't at all. They merely skim the cream off the top of the labours of everyone else below them, all of us. So rich now, the billionaires of this country having added $6 billion to their wealth since Starmer and Reeves took over government. That, in this day and age, they simply buy politicians and buy political parties, and that is what we've seen here with Labour. Now owned, lock, stock and barrel, by the rich, having purged and driven away so much of their own membership. They are now beholden to those with all the cash. That is the real reason Reeves backed off the non-doms. But she can get all tough and haughty and angry when talking about those without power, without cash, without influence. Labour are all big and tough and having the big balls when it comes to punching down on them. Reeves claims it's all about tackling fraud, though. But fraud, for example, amongst disability living allowance, the former main disability benefit, is just 0.1% amongst those people still claiming it. And amongst its replacement, PIP, it's been rounded off to zero. Zero, Rachel Reeves. Can you count that high? And too often, what mistakes occurs end up being proven to be down to departmental error. And don't just take my word for that. The Big Issue published an article all about this just last May. Mikey Earhart, campaigner at Disability Rights UK, said, "New data shows what we, as disabled people, have known for years. PIP fraud is a non-issue. PIP fraud is now the lowest on record, despite the government placing fraud front and centre of their latest public announcements. PIP overpayments stood at 0.4%, which is the equivalent of £90 million lost in a year. That is compared to 1.1%, £200 million, in the financial year ending 2023, a significant decrease. The majority of overpayments happened because of errors where the claimant did not report a change in their needs. Only 1 in 100 PIP claimants were overpaid." So how, knowing all of this, is it not defrauding the country to allow very wealthy people to not pay their fair share? I mean, Reeves apparently thought very differently once upon a time.
And can the Chancellor explain today why he won't close the outdated, unfair and unjustifiable tax loophole that sees 70,000 people benefit from the non-dom tax status?
Yeah. That was from 2022. Why wouldn't Rishi Sunak close the non-dom tax status? And now it's, why won't you, Rachel Reeves? And it all comes down to money and influence, and she was called out on this by Trevor Phillips. These people lobbied you. Why are you listening to them and not any number of disability rights groups or poverty advocating outlets when it comes to social security, especially in light of said numbers, where your claims of fraud don't stack up one iota? Fraud in social security is minuscule, yet Reeves is obsessed with that being the priority, ignoring the question about the non-doms, who are making something like £35 million a day for each of themselves and avoiding paying their fair share. Billions of pounds wasted, she said, in the benefits system. If she's talking about fraud or departmental error, then she's clearly been allowed to do the sums herself again because they simply don't add up. Rachel from accounts strikes again, but actually I can absolutely believe she means anyone on benefits, because she wants to cut her way to growth, which we know doesn't work. We've had over a decade of the Tories trying to do that, and it just impoverishes people who have the least, already struggling with health matters. But if you really want to know, if you're in that boat or you know someone who is what Rachel Reeves really thinks about you, then coverage in the Murdoch Times, which also reflected her Murdoch scum interview, laid it out by her in her own words. And this frankly chilling excerpt will tell you all you need to know. One area Sir Keir Starmer and Reeves are looking at is benefits. Both have said that they want to reduce the benefits bill, with new plans expected in the spring. Sickness benefits have ballooned to £65 billion and are poised to hit £100 billion by the end of this Parliament. Is Reeves concerned that the system is incentivising people to be off work? I think what is wrong, and what is stopping people from getting back into work and resulting in an overly high benefits bill, is that if you manage to qualify for a sickness benefit, then your requirements to look for work are less, and you get a lot more money. The system, she says, is perverse. If you qualify for sickness benefits, then you have demonstrated, in an already chronically difficult system, with very high bars already to overcome, that you are genuinely sick and or you are genuinely disabled. Yet if you qualify, that is, according to Reeves, a perversion. I'll hark you back to those fraud claims and the actual numbers behind it. 0% on PIP, but to Reeves, it's a perversion. Does it imply she thinks those who claim it, for whatever reason therefore, that they have proven their entitlement, are a perversion too? Because this kind of language certainly implies that, certainly denigrates these people, paints a target on them as well for the fascists of this country, a blanket tarring of people with enough on their plate with their own health and their own additional needs, not least trying to get by under successive governments who do nothing but terrorise them. And now the Chancellor of the Exchequer of this Labour government is calling the system perverse, and by association, in my view, those claiming them, then. Many disabled people do actually work, Rachel Reeves. They need extra help to enable them to engage with work. Perhaps they require a mobility car. But I suppose you're going to come after them for their driving licences now. That is supporting them for the additional needs they simply have. That is not perverse. If after 14 years of the Tories, people have been left with long-term illnesses, such as a result of long COVID, which was grossly mismanaged, or their mental health has been wrecked because, well, they've had the government coming after them for so long, or they've been made homeless, they've been struggling to get by in a country where everything gets cut instead of funded, and can't engage with the services they need to help them when they need them, and their health deteriorates as a result of that. That's not a perversion. That's the government's failure. That's absolute governmental failure. And of course, we're also hearing now that Reeves is going to freeze housing benefit, driving poverty even more this year, affecting more people's mental health and physical health, indeed, if they end up losing their homes over that. You can't keep hitting us, clubbing us over the head and our incomes at the working class level, whilst giving the rich, who have all the nation's wealth, an ongoing free pass and expect this country to still function. That is perverse. You dismantle social security, demonise the disabled, attack the low-earning, and call it removing the barriers to growth. That's perverse. Those who have disabilities should no longer be cared for by a civilised society, no longer left down but be denigrated as work limited instead. That is perverse. Labour, being just the latest bought and paid for government of this country, is what is truly perverse. But now we all know what you really think of us. If anyone is truly perverse around here, it is you, smiling in a Times article as you cut again. This rancid Labour in name-only government that cannot fall fast enough for the good of so many people. How dare you think people will lap this up? Do you think this is something to brag about? That this is something you can talk to a newspaper about and think you're going to get a big win off the back of it? Too many people have had it too hard for too long, especially if they're in receipt of Social Security, to take any more of this kind of language. It isn't just Reeves punching down this week, though. Starmer himself has been doing it too. Though, whilst Reeves keeps her ire for those who don't earn enough for her liking, Starmer's gone after the tree huggers. But he's gone after one in particular so viciously, even the mainstream media have called him out for it. We have a government of bullies and thugs. It seems as this video recommendation will tell you all about Starmer's latest stunt. Please do hit like, share and subscribe before you go and watch it, or something else though, to make sure you don't miss out on new daily content and help support the channel as well, all very much appreciated. And now just 9,000 subs shy of the 100,000 subscriber mark, which is bonkers. So a big thank you to everyone already subscribing to the channel and watching me regularly, and I'll hopefully therefore catch you next on the next feed. Cheers folks.